Why has chicken been so successful? Main reason is genetics. People need to realise that the gestation period of a chicken is 21 days. So the two big breeding companies that there are in the world have got these paired groups of birds in Europe and in the United States. And they've got all these families of birds with all genetic traits. They are now setting to produce birds that they believe the market will require, the market worldwide will require in 5 years' time. That's how far ahead they are planning. Our plans, 3 years ahead. We bring in genetic material, as I said, into our station every 3 years, every 6 months. But it takes 3 years for that material to work its way through our system. The traits that we're looking for in the bird, initially it was egg production, hatchability, livability. The important one, feed deficiency. It now takes about 1.7 kilo of feed to produce a kilo of live weight. Next best, I think, is pig with about 3.5. Then you go out to cattle at about 5.5. So feed efficiency, breast meat yield. I can remember when we used to get about 12% breast meat off the chicken. We now target about 30% breast meat, purely through genetic selection. There is no magic, there are no drugs, purely genetic selection. What the two major breeding companies are now working on is disease resistance. As the world imposes restrictions on the medications that we can use, either in our feed or in our water supply, so we've got to come up with other ways of ensuring that the bird lives through its life. And so that's what the breeders are currently breeding. And that is the main reason why we're now growing a bird to the first pickup weight of about 1.7 kilo live weight, that when I joined the industry in 1968, it would take us 84 days to grow to that. This bird today is stands about that high, and I still have photos of the birds that we farmed when I joined the industry, and a 1.7 kilo bird was about that long. Seemed to be all legs and neck, very little breast. And so the bird has now become squatter. It's got far more muscle, and that has been one of the big things that has allowed us to pretty well keep constant pricing, which has been the strength of the industry and the reason why it has grown so well. You can buy a fillet of breast for about $10 a kilo, from $5 to $10 a kilo at the moment. There's a surplus on the market. If you want to buy beef, you're going to be paying $25. If you want to buy lamb, you'll pay up to $45 for some lamb chops. So genetic development, which is pure genetics, has been the main driver of the dramatic improvement in the cost of growing a chicken. Nutrition is perhaps the second most important, because one of the big costs in our industry is the cost of feed. There is a mistaken story out there that 60% of the cost of growing a chicken is feed. Well, that's not quite true. It might be true of the cost of growing a live bird, but there are a lot of costs that go after the live bird. Feed represents probably 20% of the costs of a company in our industry. the biggest cost to us is labour. Labour is far and away our biggest cost. But nutrition and the developments worldwide, and information is so available worldwide now, that news travels quickly, and so the nutritional diets that we now feed our birds to optimise their growth and performance has grown enormously. Husbandry. Husbandry, the way that we farm the birds, the temperature regimes that we keep, the tunnel ventilation that we now, which forces air across the birds so that they can operate at their optimum, has come a long way and continues to advance. And of course the environment that they live in. So they've been the drivers of why the industry has been able to operate, if you look at a graph, at almost constant prices over all this time. If you want to read more about the industry, I'd strongly recommend the Australian Farm Journal. And in it is an article by a lady, Asa Wahlquist. And I don't know if Asa's here today, but it's the first of a series of 4 articles that are in the Australian Farm Journal, which I think is very definitive and an excellent read for anyone who wants to read about this great industry that we live in. And the other things that I say, people often ask, again, why did the industry grow the way it did? Well, there have been about five drivers of that growth in terms of the market. The first was when the supermarkets started purchasing chicken. We sold our first chicken to Woolworths. Their first chicken they bought in April 1961. At our peak, we would sell 1,000 tonne of chickens a week, frozen chickens. Now we sell less than 100 tonne of frozen chicken. The market has changed to fresh and to portions. But the growth of supermarkets and the fact that they took on chickens was a big driver during the 60s and 70s. You know, none of you may be old enough to remember, but the big promotions that the supermarkets used to run in those days was a frozen chook and a tub of frozen ice cream. And that drove supermarket loss leaders for about 10 or 15 years. The second driver of growth for the industry was the growth or the introduction of the quick service restaurant chains. We supplied the first KFC store that opened in Guildford in Sydney in May 1968. And so the industry, as the KFC spread around, we also supplied 9-cut chicken to McDonald's in the early 1970s. McDonald's went out of selling 9-cut chicken some years later. They just couldn't compete with KFC and they weren't making the margins they wanted. But during the 1970s, 1980s, that second big driver of growth was the development and the establishment of the quick service restaurant chains. So you've got KFC, McDonald's, you've got Hungry Jack's, you've got Red Rooster chain, you've got Porto's, all supplying chicken.